Hello, and welcome to Math with Usna. In this lesson, we'll talk about how to write a proof. So we're going to discuss the process of writing a proof, and I'll give you guys some tips on getting through a proof without getting stuck. First step is to take all of your given information and put it into your diagram. If you don't have a diagram, you should draw one. You want to think about what you're trying to prove and try to imagine how you could get there. Next step is to write all the information, including what's in your diagram. As step one, you're going to put given as the reason. Then you're going to go through each part of the given information and determine what conclusions you can make. You're going to use definitions, theorems, and postulates throughout your proof. So it's a good idea to keep those handy, maybe a separate sheet of paper on your desk so you can refer to them. And the last step is to keep using previous steps in your proof to make more conclusions. As you make conclusions, you want to put that information into your diagram so that it is up to date. First of all, we need to talk about how to use a conditional statement. That's something that's written in if-then form. If you are going to use the conclusion of a conditional statement, you have to first prove the hypothesis. You have to somewhere state in your proof that the hypothesis is true. For example, if an angle is less than 90 degrees, then the angle is acute. So this is my if-then statement. My hypothesis is that the angle is less than 90 degrees, and my conclusion is that the angle is acute. Now, if I were to say or to make the conclusion that the angle is acute, what has to be true? In order for me to say that the angle is acute, I have to first show that the angle is less than 90 degrees. So you cannot say the conclusion unless somewhere in your proof you say the angle is less than 90 degrees. So if you're going to state the conclusion, you have to state your hypothesis somewhere previously in your proof. Let's go through an example. We'll go through step by step and work through this proof. So we've got a diagram given to me. We know that B is the midpoint of that segment AD. We want to prove that angle DBC is 90 degrees, and we want to prove that BD is 5. First thing I always do is to put any given information into my diagram. So B is the midpoint. So what I'm going to do is put tick marks because midpoints cut things in half. Next thing I'm going to do is take my given statement and anything that's given in the diagram, and I'm going to put it as my first statement. So I'm going to say number 1, and I'm going to write those down the way they are. So B is the midpoint of AD. We also know that angle DBC is a right angle because I've got that little box right there, so that tells me right angle. And I know that AB is 5. So my given information comes not just from the actual problem where it says given B is the midpoint of AD, but also from your picture. So you want to write down everything that's given to you. Okay, now the next step is to look through each bit of information that's given and see what conclusion you can make from that. So our first statement is B is the midpoint of AD. What does that mean? That means that AB is congruent to BD. And why do I know that's true? By the definition of a midpoint. What else do I know? Okay. If angle DBC is a right angle, well, that tells me that the measure has to be 90 degrees. And why is that true? Well, that's the definition of a right angle. My last given was AB equals 5. I can't do anything with that bit of information, so I'm just going to leave it. I'm not going to use it just yet. All right, so what we're going to do now is keep making conclusions. We've used up, and if it helps you to kind of check them off, go ahead and do that. We used up that B is the midpoint. We used that angle DBC is a right angle. We have not used this AB equals 5 yet. So we need to use that somewhere. It's very, very unlikely that you're going to be given a bit of information that you're not going to use. So I'm going to have to use AB equals 5 somehow. Now notice that we actually already proved one of our statements. We wanted to prove that DBC was a right angle, and we did that already. So that part's done. Check that off. I need to prove that BD is 5. Well, I know that AB and BD are congruent. What does it mean if two segments are congruent? That means that their lengths are equal. So my next step is to take that statement, number 2, and translate it into lengths. So AB equals BD. And that is by the definition of congruence. Because if two things are congruent, that means that their lengths or their measures, if they're angles, are the same. Why do we care about this? Why can't we just jump to AB equals 5? Because there's a difference between this notation and this notation. We want to make sure that our proofs are very, very precise. They have to match up exactly. I have AB equals 5 here. That is referring to the length. I want BD equals 5. Again, that's referring to the length. I know that these segments are congruent. That doesn't give me a statement about length. This tells me a statement about congruence. So I have to take a step and convert it into length so that it matches up exactly with what I want. So now let's look at what we've got here. We have AB is equal to BD, and we have AB equals 5. What does that mean? Well, if AB is equal to 5 and it's equal to BD, that means BD is equal to 5. And that is by the transitive property. So transitive property, if two things are equal to the same thing, then they're equal to each other. BD and 5 are both equal to AB. That means they have to be equal to each other. So this right here is my second statement that I was trying to prove. And there you go. We've proven all of our required statements. So overall, for a proof, you start off with your picture. Then you're going to put all of your given information into your statement and reason chart. And you're going to go through each step that's given to you and determine what conclusion you can make from that. And then from there, keep building. Just keep going from each statement. What can I say about this? What can I say about this? Until you eventually reach whatever it is that you're trying to prove. If you learned something, please like and subscribe. And if you have ideas for other math videos, please write it in the comments below.